Providence, Rhode Island. Historic, proud, and like many American cities, struggling with a silent war. A war against addiction. In the heart of New England, where cobblestone streets trace old neighborhoods and time-worn buildings tell the stories of generations, an epidemic crept silently through back alleys and well-traveled avenues. For years, the opioid crisis battered this city, a flood difficult to stem, a tide that washed over families, friendships, and dreams. Under the pale early morning light, Providence awakes, a city at the intersection of beauty and heartbreak. Past the empty shell of old factories, across bridges arching over river waters reflecting both hope and despair, the news echoes, more overdoses, more loss. But within these headlines lies another truth. Stories that begin in pain, wrestle with darkness, and find their way back to the light. This is the story of Alex Rivera, one among thousands, but for his mother Maria, for his friends, for those who know him, it is everything. At 28, Alex worked hard on local construction crews, committed to setting rebar, hoisting beams, building the foundation not only of new houses, but of his young adulthood. Like many, he measured life's progress in paychecks and aching muscles at the end of each week, never expecting that a twist of fate could change everything. One afternoon, a scaffolding collapse, a flash of pain, and suddenly, Alex's story swerved. His back injury meant doctor's visits, x-rays, and, finally, prescriptions. Vicodin, oxycodone, little white pills that dulled the pain, pills that made it possible to keep working at first. Alex remembers those days well. It was just a couple pills for the pain. I never thought it would go further than that. Honestly, I used to think people like me, well, I wasn't like them. I had a job. I had plans. But when the pain didn't stop, and the pills actually made me feel okay for the first time in years. He pauses during our interview, the memory visible in his eyes. It's like something inside you switches. You need more until the doctor says no. And then you go somewhere else. Like hundreds in Providence, Alex found himself on the edge of addiction, teetering between trust in a system and the raw necessity for relief. When the prescriptions ran dry and insurance gave way to red tape, other sources filled the void. The streets offered what the pharmacy no longer would. It was a slow slide at first, buying a few pills from a friend, sometimes less, sometimes more. But always moving toward that moment when the compulsion took over. His absence at family dinners grew noticeable. The empty chair, unanswered calls, missed birthdays. Maria Thompson, his mother, never stopped searching for him, though she wondered, each time she entered another shelter or hospital, what she would find at the end. He disappeared for days. I used to pray I'd find him, dead or alive. That's the truth. You lose your son one piece at a time, Maria says, her voice cracking as she sits in the kitchen where she raised Alex. And every time I saw a news story, every time I heard sirens, I imagined it was him. For Maria and for thousands of families in Providence, addiction isn't just numbers or headlines. It's an everyday crisis. Behind every addict is a family trying to make sense of the chaos. Parents, siblings, partners. They are pulled under by the same tides that claim their loved ones. Elsewhere in Providence, Detective James O'Connor walks the beat, a veteran of the Narcotics Division, his badge both shield and burden. He's seen the costs of the war up close. We used to lock them up. That was our answer. But you can't arrest your way out of an addiction epidemic, he explains, glancing down at the cracked sidewalk marked by discarded syringes. Now we're handing out Narcan and trying to get people into treatment. The old way wasn't working. Things had to change. Flashbacks replay in his mind. A frantic call for help at dawn. Overdoses in alleyways. The chilling quiet after sirens fade. For years, dealers and users cycled through the system, but the faces of the lost, young and old, from all neighborhoods, stayed with him. But I see hope too. When someone makes it out, when they go to treatment, when they come back and say, thanks for not giving up, that's why I'm still here. The gravity of addiction's grip is often invisible, cloaked in silence or shame. But for those caught in its undertow, there is no pretending. There is just the next high, the next fix, and the slow crumbling of life's structure. Alex's own descent was harrowing and unglamorous, missing work, selling possessions, the cycle of borrowing and promising that this time things would change. Eventually, even the streets grew distant. He found himself in the sort of places he'd once only seen from a safe distance: shelters, hospital waiting rooms, the chill of withdrawal gnawing through every thought. Desperation finally delivered him to a detox center on the edge of the city. Fluorescent lights, the sting of withdrawal, voices echoing through the hall. It was there, on a metal cot surrounded by strangers, that the possibility of something better began to take root. With nowhere left to run, Alex took his first step into recovery. For some, that step is forced. For others, it's an act of surrender. But in Providence, organizations like the Providence Center and Project Weber Renew offer more than just treatment. They offer hope and a way back. At the Providence Center's Roads to Recovery program, Alex encountered others whose stories overlapped with his own. Different details, the same themes. In group therapy circles, confessions flowed. Fears, regrets, slivers of hope. The withdrawals nearly killed me. I'm serious, Alex remembers. It felt like all the bones in my body were on fire, that my skin was on inside out. But I stayed because I wanted to live again. I didn't want my mom's heartbreak to be for nothing. Recovery was not a miracle, not a single leap forward, but a series of hard-won, often painful inches. Mornings started early, cravings hit without mercy, and the voice of self-doubt trailed him everywhere. But at the Providence Center, he forged connections with counselors and peers who refused to let despair have the last word. Alex also benefited from community outreach by places like Project Weber Renew, which dispatches outreach teams to offer harm reduction and help guide those struggling toward treatment. In group, he met Jamie, another young person from South Providence, battling her own demons. They listened to each other's stories, recognizing shared pain, drawing strength from one another. When you're alone, it's easy to give up, Jamie tells him, the two sharing coffee after session. But together, we keep each other accountable. Each day brought new challenges. Out on the streets, temptation lurked around every corner. Old friends would appear, memories of easier times, phone calls inviting him back to places he knew he shouldn't go. Recovery, he learned quickly, is not a straight line. The urge for just one more, the illusion of control, is never far away. One muggy afternoon, after a difficult therapy session, Alex found himself walking near his old neighborhood. The pull of the past was strong. He saw familiar faces, heard the laughter of former running partners. Their invitations felt like a lifeline and a trap. Breathless, on the edge of decision, Alex pulled his phone from his pocket, hands trembling bad enough to nearly drop it. He called his sponsor, Mark, a man nearly 30 years sober, who'd been there at his lowest. On the phone, Mark's voice was steady and kind. "You fell, so what? We fall forward. We get back up? You called, didn't you? That's a win today." The next morning, Alex made it to group. He stared at the ring of faces, embarrassed by his brush with relapse, but was met not with judgment, but understanding. Each member of the circle had stories of their own battles, their own stumbles. "Nobody gets this perfect," the group leader reminded them all. "But showing up, that's what counts." Bit by bit, Alex stitched a new life together. In the warmth of crowded recovery meetings, on the sunlit sidewalk outside the Providence Center, in laughter over shared meals at Ocean State Recovery's weekend dinners, he built something he hadn't known he needed, a community. He began volunteering at a community center in Elmwood, folding chairs, wiping tables, offering food, and sometimes just a listening ear to those at the beginning of their own recovery. Guided by the people who'd once cared for him, Alex learned to give back. He saw in the faces of others the pain he once carried, and in helping them, the weight of his own suffering began to lessen. "I used to feel like nothing," Alex shares in a quieter moment. "I thought I would never be good for anyone, not even myself. But now I mentor at Ocean State Recovery. I help with meetings, I bring coffee, I just try to pay forward what was given to me. I've got a job at a restaurant now, cooking lunch. At the end of the day, I lock up and I feel peace. For the first time in a long time." For Alex and many others, purpose was the missing piece. Purpose provided a reason to get up, to show up, to hold the line against despair. It made each sober day not just a measure of survival, but an investment in something greater than pain. Back home, Maria noticed the change. Where once there had been worry and exhaustion, there grew hope, tentative at first, blooming by degrees. She explains, "I never thought I'd get him back, not really, but every time he comes to Sunday dinner, every time he calls to just say hi, I get a piece of him back. And I just know, he's trying, and that's enough." Weekends in Providence bring the community together in new ways. In a city park, a crowd gathers, families, survivors, advocates, each carrying a candle. The flicker of hundreds of tiny flames stands as both memorial and warning, reminder and declaration. Names are read aloud, silence falls for those lost to the tides, friends and loved ones who did not find their way back. At an overdose prevention event, Detective O'Connor helps distribute kits, showing parents and teenagers how to administer Narcan. Around him, the faces reflect sorrow and resilience alike. "You can't just turn your back," he says, tying his badge back on. "You have to believe people can come back from this. I see it happen every day." The city's response is not perfect, but it is growing. Groups like the Providence Center, Project Weber, Renew, Ocean State Recovery, and Prevent Overdose RI work tirelessly in the shadows and in the open, offering education, clean syringes, counseling, and often, most importantly, unconditional respect. They know that recovery isn't a privilege. It is a right, a necessity. And so, among the iron bridges and brick walls of Providence, a quiet revolution takes root. People share their stories, at kitchen tables, in church basements, on street corners, lifting each other out of shame and into possibility. For Alex Rivera, healing is still a daily practice. Not every day is easy. There are anniversaries, reminders, lingering regrets. But each morning, he opens his eyes, breathes in the salt-kissed air of Providence, and chooses again to live, to recover, to believe that hope has a place here. Addiction stole time, trust, and lives. But it could not take away hope. In Providence, recovery is real. And it begins with one step. If you or someone you love is struggling, reach out. The Providence Center, providencecenter.org. Project Weber Renew, weberrenew.org. Ocean State Recovery, oceanstaterecovery.org. Prevent Overdose RI, preventoverdosesiri.org.